The storm arrived before Thomas did. It came in rolling waves across the countryside. First the rain, sharp against the windshield, then the thunder that made the hills rumble like something stirring underground. By the time his taxi turned down the long drive that led to the Ashwick Hotel, the world had been swallowed in night and weather. The headlights caught the first glimpse of it, an old Victorian structure, 4 stories tall, perched against the edge of a wooded hill. Its roof slanted into peaks and chimneys, its stonework damp with years of storms. Some buildings wear their history like a shroud. Ashwick wore it like armor. Thomas Hale stepped out beneath the awning, clutching his leather suitcase. He was 45, tall, a little worn from travel, with the look of someone who'd been carrying more than just luggage for a long time. The lobby doors opened with a sigh, as though the building itself was breathing him in. Inside was warmth, the hush of carpet over old wood, the faint scent of lemon polish and something else, something like sea air, though they were miles from the coast. The clerk at the desk smiled politely. A young woman, crisp uniform, hair pinned back, posture too straight to be natural. "Good evening, sir. Checking in?" "Yes, reservation under Hale." Her hands moved across the ledger. "Ah, one night, single room, that's correct?" "Correct." She took a key from the rack, heavy brass, the number engraved deep enough to catch the light. "Room 404. The lift is to your left. If it rattles, don't worry. It's older than I am, but it'll carry you." Thomas accepted the key, frowned faintly at the number. 404. Something nagged, a half-memory from somewhere. He shook it off, thanked her, and headed for the lift. The 4th floor was quiet, dim. Gas-style sconces flickered along the hallway, their glow just strong enough to reach the patterned carpet. The hall seemed longer than the others, narrow, stretched, as though the building had made room where it shouldn't have. At the end, he found it, room 404. The door was darker than the rest, the brass digits shining even in the low light. Thomas unlocked it and stepped inside. The room was ordinary. A queen bed, a writing desk, curtains heavy with dust, a single mirror tilted slightly in its frame. He set down his suitcase, loosened his tie, and sat by the window. Rain lashed against the glass. Lightning stuttered across the horizon, and for a moment he thought he heard something beneath it all. Not thunder, not wind, a whisper. He closed the curtains. Sleep came slowly, dragging him through uneasy dreams. He woke twice in the night, certain someone had been moving across the room. By morning, the storm had passed. The air was clear. The world seemed unchanged, until he reached the lobby. The morning clerk was not the same woman. This one was older, early 50s perhaps, with silver strands woven into her dark hair and an expression like stone softened only by practice. Thomas placed the brass key on the counter. "Checking out?" "Room 404. Her fingers paused mid-motion on the typewriter. She looked at him, then at the key. "I'm sorry, sir." "Which room?" "404. Her brow furrowed. She glanced at the key again as though he'd set a snake on her desk. "Sir, we don't have a room 404. Thomas blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I checked in last night. This is the key." She turned to the rack behind her. Neat rows of keys gleamed in the morning sun. 401, 402, 403, 405, 406. No gap. No 404. "Perhaps you mean 304? She suggested carefully. "I know what room I stayed in," Thomas said. "Top floor, end of the hall, brass numbers on the door, 404. The woman shook her head. "The Ashwick Hotel has never had a room 404. The lobby seemed quieter. A pair of guests at the breakfast table glanced it over, sensing tension. Thomas leaned closer, his voice low but firm. "Are you telling me I hallucinated a room? That I unlocked a door with this key, slept in a bed, unpacked my bag, and it wasn't there?" At that moment, another figure emerged from the back office. The manager, Mr. Alden. Tall, late 50s, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair slicked back. His presence calmed the room like gravity. "What seems to be the problem?" the clerk explained. Alden listened without interruption, then extended his hand. Thomas placed the key in his palm. The manager weighed it, turned it over. His expression barely changed, but something flickered behind his eyes. "This isn't from our set," he said finally. "We haven't used these since the 70s. Thomas let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "Are you serious? That key opened the door to 404 last night. I stayed there." Alden met his gaze. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Mr. Hale, Ashwick Hotel was built without a room 404. The architect believed the number unlucky. There is no such room." The lobby air thickened, the silence louder than any argument. Thomas felt the ground tilt beneath him. He insisted on being taken upstairs. The staff, reluctant but unwilling to cause a scene in front of guests, agreed. The four of them, Thomas, the clerk, Alden, and a young porter, entered the lift. It groaned as it climbed, the sound filling the silence none of them wanted to break. The hallway looked the same as it had last night. Carpet, sconces, wallpaper peeling faintly at the corners. Thomas walked with purpose. He counted the doors. 401, 402, 403. He reached the end of the hall and stopped. Where room 404 had been, there was only wall. Smooth plaster, faded wallpaper, no door, no brass numbers. His chest tightened. "This isn't possible." The clerk shook her head gently. "You see, sir, there is no 404. Thomas pressed his hand to the wall. It felt solid, cool, real. He knocked. Hollow. There was space behind it. He looked back at them, his voice rising. "There's a room here. You've just sealed it off." Alden's tone was even. "Mr. Hale, the hotel has never had a room 404. But Thomas wasn't listening. His pulse pounded. He remembered the creak of the floorboards, the smell of dust, the whisper in the night. He'd been there. And yet, here was the wall. Later, seated in the lounge with a glass of water he hadn't touched, Thomas tried to make sense of it. Alden sat across from him, patient, composed. "You're not the first," Alden said quietly. Thomas looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" "There have been others. Guests who swear they stayed in a room that doesn't exist. Always 404. Always the same story. We try to handle it quietly, for the sake of the hotel's reputation." Thomas stared. "And what do you tell them?" "The truth," Alden said. "That there is no room 404. Thomas leaned back, shaken. "I'm not crazy." "I didn't say you were." The manager's voice softened, but his eyes stayed fixed. "When I was a boy, my father worked here. He told me of a guest who stayed in 404 in 1962. The next morning, he vanished. His belongings remained, but he was never found." The words hung between them. Thomas whispered, "So you know something's there." Alden didn't answer. That night, Thomas refused to leave. He demanded to see blueprints, records, anything proving the hotel's structure. At midnight, unable to sleep, he returned to the 4th floor. The hallway was silent. Shadows stretched long under the flickering lamps. He walked to the end, and there, impossibly, a door stood. Brass numbers gleamed, 404. His breath caught. His hand trembled as he touched the knob. It turned. Inside, the room waited exactly as before. The bed, the curtains, the tilted mirror. But this time, he wasn't alone. A whisper moved through the air, clearer than before. Words he almost understood, tugging at his memory, at something deeper in the, "By morning, Thomas was gone." The staff found his suitcase in the lounge, his coat neatly folded. The brass key lay on the counter. There was no record of his stay. Alden entered the 4th floor hallway himself. At the end, as always, only wall. He placed a hand on it, feeling the cool plaster, the faint hum of something beyond. And for the first time he admitted, if only to himself, what he'd long suspected. The hotel was built around a secret, and the secret had a room number. Some doors, Alden whispered, should never be opened. To this day, the Ashwick Hotel stands. Guests come and go, never knowing what lies at the end of the fourth-floor hallway. Room 404 doesn't exist. Or maybe it does. Maybe the number isn't just an absence on the wall, but a presence that lingers, waiting for those who look too closely. And maybe the truth is this: the spaces we insist aren't real. Sometimes they insist back,